next week, if I manage to finish it in time. I plan to release what I'm sure will be an extremely controversial documentary on a subject that is much talked about, yet which remains cloaked in an aura of mystery. I'm pretty sure that I'd be kicked off YouTube if I published it here in its entirety, and so I've decided to advertise it on this channel and publish it on other platforms. So prepare yourself for next week. In this video, we will explore the traditional Ugandan legend of the Night Dancer, which has astonishing similarities with the North American legend of the Wendigo, the evil cannibalistic spirit of Cree and Algonquin tradition. According to Ugandan legend, the jungles of the African interior are haunted by an evil spirit called Kitambo, which can possess people who consume human flesh, or who invite their influence through the performance of certain occult rituals. Those possessed by the Kitambo develop an insatiable craving for human flesh, which compels them to prowl cemeteries under the cover of darkness, searching for fresh corpses upon which to feast. Every once in a while, night dancers would be accused of murder, resulting in exile from the village or gruesome public executions. The stories we will explore in this video were collected and translated by my Ugandan informant, Ddungu Ivan Barnes, narrated by either an AI clone of the actual voice of the storyteller, or by the clone of an actor whose vocal profile resembles that of the storyteller. Enjoy. Our first video explores the manner in which night dancers are said to become possessed by the cannibal spirit, recounting the misadventures of a young man named Jjuko, who was reluctantly initiated into night dancer culture by members of his family.
This story was about a man called Jjuko, who was introduced to night dancer culture by his family spiritually, and has been battling to overcome the spell, but all in vain. He was single and lived with his sister. It began when Jjuko got back home from work, very tired and exhausted. He got himself something to eat, then took a bath because he needed to rest, since he had to travel to the rural area with his sister the next day to attend to an urgent call from their parents. Jjuko came back home one evening and had dinner prepared by his sister, took a bath, and went straight to bed. But while in bed, he could hardly get any sleep. Something inside him was urging him to take a walk outside, since he no longer felt tired. So, Jjuko decided to get out of the house and walk. As he was leaving, he called his sister to shut the door as she prepared his clothes for the next day's travel to their parents. Jjuko checked the time. It was around 11 p.m. He decided to take a path that seemed shorter to the nearby town. It was a lonely and deserted route at that time, with mighty trees planted on both sides of the road. He was the only one walking along the road, hearing different bird sounds. He walked as fast as he could, and as he continued, he saw a little boy, around 10 years old, walking toward him. What could bring this little boy to this lonely road at this time? Jjuko wondered, as he approached and asked the boy where he was heading at such a time of night. The little boy replied, "Do not make noise here. You may attract the dead's attention." Jjuko did not understand the boy's words, and as he tried to ask what he meant by attracting the dead's attention, the little boy just walked past him. As Jjuko walked faster, he observed that no matter how quickly he moved, he could not pass the huge tree ahead. When he turned to see how far the boy had gone, to his surprise, the boy had gradually transformed into a very old man with a walking stick. Shocked, Jjuko tried to run but was ordered to stop by the old man, who asked him to come closer. However, Jjuko could not move beyond where he was standing. The old man told him the reason he could not proceed was that the gate was closed, and it was time for rituals. Jjuko pleaded with the old man to let him pass, but the old man insisted he could not. The only help he offered was to show him a place to hide because he was an ancestral spirit from Jjuko's family and would not harm him. After these words, Jjuko hid by a particular tree as instructed by the old man. Moments later, Jjuko started hearing strange voices, laughing and chanting as they came closer to where the old man was seated. He could not see the people chanting and laughing, only hear their voices. Jjuko also saw birds of different kinds transforming into humans as powerful winds blew the branches of the trees. dropping something that looked like blood. Not long after, he saw 40 men who were half human and half animal. This terrified him. When these half-human, half-animal figures sat down, Jjuko heard a mighty wind accompanied by thunderstorms, bird sounds, and powerful voices echoing from all directions. Then, he saw a skinny woman walk in. She was half flesh, half skeleton, with more than 10 human skulls hanging around her neck. Jjuko urinated on himself at the sight of such a deadly creature. As soon as she arrived, everyone hailed her, and the rituals began. Jjuko heard them call the old man, who explained that he was one of Jjuko's family ancestors and had come for the blood rituals. The skinny woman asked the old man to bring out the person he had hidden. The old man turned to Jjuko's direction and ordered him to come out. Jjuko was powerless and could not resist as he was controlled by external powers. The skinny woman asked Jjuko what he was doing on their path. He responded that he was unaware the path belonged to the dead and that this night was their night of blood rituals. As he spoke, he grew weaker and weaker. The skinny woman called out various people who had gathered to use Jjuko as a sacrifice. To his surprise, the people called were his own family members, including his cousins and the sister he had left at home. This not only shocked Jjuko, but also terrified him. He stood and watched them perform incantations. The skinny woman called on the other men to start the sacrifice of Jjuko and feed on his flesh. However, despite their attempts, they were unable to harm him. They tried many times, but all in vain. Then the woman asked the old man to raise his cousins, but even they could not be harmed. Finally, the skinny woman ordered Jjuko to be brought for the blood rituals. He thought perhaps the same thing would happen to him as with his cousins. Just as the half-human, half-animal men approached Jjuko, he grew weaker and could not resist as they laid him on a stone in the center. They began making powerful incantations, and he felt a mighty wind from all corners of the earth. He was ordered to drink blood, which transformed Jjuko into a more powerful being. He was welcomed into the night dancing, which he had been avoiding. The next day, he woke up with an insatiable thirst for human flesh and blood.
Our next tale is the supposedly true story of a young girl who was lured by her friends to the home of her parents. Unbeknownst to her, a pair of night dancers who planned to kill and eat her when she was asleep. Stories like these would discourage Ugandan children from seeking shelter in strangers' homes, even during rainstorms.
This story was narrated to me by my late grandmother about two friends, namely Bulya and Jowei. These two became good friends at the boarding school where they were studying. One day, Bulya informed her parents that she was going to pay them a visit and that she would be coming with her friend Jowei. It was around 3 p.m. when the two started their journey to Bulya's parents. It was a long route, and they had to walk for 3 hours. By 6 p.m. they were already at Bulya's home. On reaching, they found that Bulya's parents had prepared food for them. Since it was already getting late, Bulya's parents advised them to stay the night, as it would be dangerous for them to walk back to school in the dark. The two friends agreed. Jowei was somehow suspicious about the character of her friend's family. Little did she know that they were actually cannibals. After having supper, Bulya's parents called their daughter for a private talk and told her that her friend was to be eaten because they were left with no meat. The plan was made on how they would execute their mission of butchering Jowei. Bulya was told that they were to stay together with her friend, but she had to make sure that Jowei stayed next to the doorway to enable them, her parents, to grab her in deep sleep and then butcher her in the blanket until she was lifeless. So, when both Bulya and Jowei reached the room where they were to stay, Jowei was asked by Bulya to sleep next to the doorway, as planned by her parents. But Jowei was so anxious and asked many questions, expressing much suspicion. She rejected sleeping next to the doorway. Bulya, to prove to her friend that there was nothing to worry about, instead decided to sleep at the doorway and forgot to alert her parents about the changed plan from the actual. She was the one instead sleeping next to the door. So her parents woke up at 2 a.m., came to the room where they were sleeping, and grabbed the one next to the door, rushed her outside covered in the blanket, and started butchering. Not knowing that it was actually their daughter, the sound of butchering woke Jowei up, and she couldn't believe what she was hearing. She quietly moved out of bed, towards where she heard the sound of people butchering, and accidentally slid and fell in the blood which was on the floor. She screamed and took off. This is when Bulya's parents noticed that they had actually killed their daughter instead. They got very annoyed and started running after Jowei with machetes to finish her also, so as to kill the evidence. Jowei ran so fast that she couldn't even feel her feet towards her school, without considering the dangers she may face up front. Her shirt was full of blood, and she was screaming for help. When she reached the school, teachers were shocked to see her terrified with blood on her shirt, and came for her rescue. She narrated to them what had happened, and that she was being followed by Bulya's parents. Jowei was hidden in the teachers' quarters, and within 25 minutes, Bulya's parents appeared at the school, but with no machetes, because they knew if they came to school with machetes, it would prove Jowei's story to the teachers. When Bulya's parents reached the school, they were angry and asked about her whereabouts, telling the teachers that Jowei had killed their daughter. But the teachers told them that the person they were talking about was not a student at their school. Her parents insisted that she was a friend to their daughter and had paid them a visit together. They insisted that she had butchered their only daughter and wanted justice and answers as to why she killed Bulya. That's when she was found in a pool of blood, and when they noticed Jowei, she just took off, and they started to run after her. But all this did not convince the teachers to hand over Jowei to them. When all failed, they left back to their residence. After they had gone, the teachers took the matters to the police, and this is where Jowei narrated the exact story to the public, and Bulya's parents were caught on murder charges. This became a lesson to my students not to trust our friends too much. We were even advised not to seek shelter in homes we hardly knew about during rain, but instead walk in the rain till home.
In our next video, the storyteller describes her own niece and nephew's possession by the Kitambo, apparently brought about by rituals conducted by her brother-in-law's family. Whenever these children attended funerals and were in the presence of corpses, they would exhibit a strange sort of mania, which her family took as evidence that they were transforming into night dancers.
The story I'm going to narrate to you, it's something I witnessed and saw with my eyes, and it may look to you as a myth, but it's a reality. My name is Ndagire. I grew up in a small town known as Nasana with my elder sister Nakityo. And during our school times, a lot of stories of night dances, people possessed by ghost demons, the Kitambo, were much talked about. We also avoided meeting certain people because they were suspected to be night dancers, which is not the case today, because religion has drafted many people from evil and some traditional cult activities. During our times of school, we used to walk 3 miles to and from school daily from Nasana to Namungona, where our school was located. We also had 2 routes to school, and the shortest route was by a certain home. Our parents always urged us not to get close to this place or seek shelter inside it during rainy days, because people always said that the people in that home were all night dancers, and they were always looked at with fear and discrimination. We, as children at that time, never in our mind believed that. We thought it was just a deception portrayed by the community people to spread hatred towards them, because we had not seen any signs of night dancing or spiritual demon possession by the people in that house. So we grew up thinking it was mere stories without proof. However, there was a point when our parents couldn't pay for our school tuition, and my elder sister Nakityo moved to the capital city Kampala in search for better life, and I stayed back with my parents. In Kampala, my sister met a man and cohabited with him. They had 2 kids together. For some reason, her husband would never allow her to meet his family. In time, Their children started developing strange behaviors of sleepwalking and grinding their teeth at night. Their mother had heard that if these behaviors manifest in the teenage years, they are signs or characteristics of people who are possessed by ghost spirits of the dead, people known as night dancers. As time went on, my sister demanded a meeting with the husband's family to know more about them because of what was happening to her kids. This continued, her demanding to meet his husband's family. This started to bring up conflicts between both parents, each blaming the other for their kids' behavior, which was worsening. This brought about their breakup, and my sister returned back home with her 2 kids. Even at home, her kids' behavior didn't change at all. It always just got worse. When the kids were in the presence of a dead body at a funeral, they could go to the extreme of undressing themselves and even developed an appetite, which made them desire to taste the body. They were usually beaten thoroughly to bring them back to their senses. They always got more obsessed whenever they got close to a dead person. This started ruining our image in the public, and we were avoided and discriminated against like the other family during our teenage times. With all this, my parents had no option but to send my sister Nakicho to go and seek her ex-husband's family. This took her 3 years to get to know where the family of her ex-husband was. The children were passed through various tradition practices, all done at night to chase those demonic spirits that they possessed.
Our last story is the tale of a former night dancer who tried, unsuccessfully, to shake off his sinister past. Being familiar with his typical translations, I'm fairly certain that the Ddungu made liberal use of ChatGPT or some other AI program to enhance the original language of the storyteller. The story itself, however, appears to be a genuine Ugandan folktale.
In the Ugandan district of Rakai, there lived a teenage boy named Muwanga. He was no ordinary boy from the Mbogo clan, known for its strange nighttime ceremonies of cannibalism, and he would not be easily noticed by many who were not close to them, as they portrayed their image as cultivators of bananas. The Mbogo clan had a curious tradition that every full moon they would gather as a clan in the moonlight for their night dances and tribal chants. Muwanga loved the night dance twist as he rotated his hand, his bare feet kicking up dust, and these moonlight experiences changed his life forever. One fateful night, the moon was hanging low, and the fire fizzled in the center. Muwanga danced, and his feet moved like flames, and his hips swung to an ancient rhythm. His elders watched while their eyes shone with pride. But something happened when Muwanga's laughter turned louder, and his eyes glowed like embers. He danced very fast until he blurred into a cyclone of limbs, and then he vanished. The next morning, the villagers found Muwanga lying down near the bamboo tree, but he was no longer a small boy. He had transformed into a giant with a huge mass of muscle, and his eyes were darker than a Ugandan night. "What happened to our Muwanga?" whispered the clan members. "Did the spirits curse him?" But Muwanga could not explain, because he had lost all memory, and his appetite had changed too. Since the Mbogo clan practiced controlled cannibalism, a dead body would last them a couple of days. But Muwanga craved more and more. He consumed a corpse a day like a greedy beast. His mother cried, "Muwanga, my son, what have you become?" "I'm hungry, Mama, and the dead taste better." With Muwanga's actions, news spread across Rakai. "Beware of a night dancer," elders warned. "He will eat anyone he comes across, plus all your domestic animals." Muwanga caused trouble throughout the village, his footsteps vibrating the ground. He would snatch a corpse from the graveyard, chew it there and then. The Mbogo clan elders called an emergency meeting, and their chief asked how they could stop Muwanga because he was ruining their controlled cannibalism reputation. They came up with a plan. They lured Muwanga into a trap, lined with banana peels where he fell in, and they chanted their ancient incantations, hoping to bring Muwanga back to his boyhood. but he just laughed, saying, "Did you think this trap could stop me? I've eaten more and still will." Then he jumped out of the trap. Elders gasped, "Mwanga is unstoppable." But an old woman stepped forward and said, "Mwanga, have you ever tried dancing in the daylight?" Mwanga replied that he was a night dancer, but the old woman insisted that it was time for him to perform during daylight. The clan organized their first daylight dance. Mwanga hesitated, then stepped into the sun. His giant feet shuffled, and his hips moved awkwardly. The elders clapped, and Mwanga blushed as much as a giant can. As he danced, something magical happened. His size diminished, his hunger waned, and he transformed back into a small boy. The curse was lifted. After a couple of years, Mwanga found himself a companion with whom he spent much of his time. Her name was Sarah. Sarah embraced Mwanga without hesitation, unaware of the secrets that lay hidden beneath his gentle facade. Their days were filled with stolen moments of joy, the nights shrouded in the comforting embrace of shared dreams. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows upon the earth, whispers of doubt began to creep into Sarah's heart. It started innocently enough, a misplaced glance, a fleeting shadow glimpsed from the corner of her eye. But when Sarah stumbled upon the pit behind their home, its depth filled with bleached bones of forgotten souls, she was haunted by the specter of truth. Sarah's suspicion grew like weeds in the garden of her mind. Determined to uncover the darkness that lurked within her husband's soul, she waited in the shadows, her resolve as unyielding as the earth beneath her feet. One fateful night, as the moon hung in the sky, Sarah followed Mwanga into the heart of the forest, her breath hitching with each step. Through the tangled underbrush and the whispered secrets of the night, she trailed him to the moonlit clearing where the air thrummed with ancient power. There, beneath the watchful gaze of the heavens, Mwanga bore witness to the truth she had long feared. Mwanga, her beloved husband, danced with abandon, his movements a twisted symphony of madness and despair. In that moment, Sarah's world crumbled around her, the illusion of love shattered by the cold light of reality. But fate, a cruel mistress, had one final twist in store for Sarah. Sarah's sister, taken by the cruel hand of fate, was laid to rest beneath the earth, her spirit soaring on wings of sorrow. In the stillness of the night, as grief hung heavy in the air, Mwanga's hunger reawakened with a vengeance. Unable to resist the siren song of fresh flesh, he succumbed to the darkness that murdered his soul. With trembling hands and haunted eyes, he unearthed the fragile vessel of Sarah's sister, his hunger eclipsing all reason. But fate, in her infinite cruelty, had other plans. As Mwanga feasted upon the remnants of life, Sarah's mother stumbled upon the scene, her screams tearing through the night like a blade through flesh. In a frenzy of horror and despair, the villagers rose, their wrath a tempest of righteous fury. Mwanga, cornered and alone, faced the judgment of those he had once called kin. With each cry of anguish, he tasted the bitter truth of existence. And as the first light of dawn broke upon the horizon, Mwanga, the night dancer, breathed his last, consumed by the darkness he could never escape. In the aftermath of the tragedy, Sarah stood amidst the ruins of her shattered dreams, her heart heavy with sorrow and regret. But as the sun cast its golden light upon the land, she found solace in the promise of a new day. A day where shadows fade and the echoes of the past are carried away on the wings of time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check in next week for the most controversial documentary I've ever put together.